When first learning how to create jazz lines when soloing over chord changes, it's really helpful to understand how to mix the different ideas in order to create the right syntax. Now, the first thing that you have to do is start listening to some jazz. Far too many people show up saying that they've been trying to learn how to play jazz from a book, which is impossible. I always point out that the book might help, but you have to be listening to the music first and foremost in order to understand the identifiable characteristics of the music itself. Okay, so if you're new to learning jazz, then in this video, what I want to do is share with you 4 tips so that you can create great bebop lines. These are going to be really helpful. And a scale that's really useful that's going to enable us to do this kind of rather quickly is called the dominant bebop scale. But in order to understand how to construct that scale, we first have to understand what a Mixolydian mode is. So let's go ahead and take a look at this Mixolydian mode. So it starts on the root, then it goes to the second, then it goes to the third, then it goes fourth, then it goes to the fifth, then it goes to the sixth, then the flat 7, and then the root again an octave above. So if I just play the scale, dominant bebop scale is made up from the Mixolydian mode with an added chromatic note between the root and the flat 7 of the scale. Now I'm sure you've seen some other videos on this particular scale, but the way we're going to actually put these ideas together today, you probably haven't seen exactly in this way, and it's really going to sort of change your whole perspective on how to use this stuff. So the whole deal when adding this chromatic note to the scale between the root and the flat 7, it guarantees that if you start your line on a chord tone, then the line will end up landing on a chord tone on a downbeat. And this is huge. Now this scale can be played both ascending and descending, but to really get that jazz sound, the more common way that we hear the scale being used is in a descending manner like this. Okay, so the first step that we're going to use to create these great bebop ideas, and this is really going to be able to jumpstart your ability to be creative with this scale, is by playing ascending arpeggios from the root, the third, the fifth, and the flat 7th of the chord. So if we look at the scale is this, and the root, the third, the fifth, and the flat 7 creates a C dominant 7th chord. So that's the chord that we're going to be playing over. So in order to kind of make these ideas hip is we want to understand all the natural extensions of the chord. So the natural extensions of the dominant 7th chord would be, we'd play our chord tones, root 3, 5, flat 7, and then we go up to the 9, the sharp 11, and the 13. And these are as important as the chord tones because we can resolve our lines to those notes, which is very, very important. So when we look at then building ascending arpeggios from the root, the 3, the 5, and the flat 7 of the C7th chord, this is what we're going to end up with. Obviously, the first one starts with a C7 because that's from the root. We've already said that. The next one is an E minor 7 flat 5. What this gives us is the third, the fifth, the flat 7, and then the 9 of the C7 chord. So that creates this natural extension of it. Then the next chord from the 5th will be the G minor major 7. So I've got G, B flat, D, and then F sharp. And what that gives me is 5, flat 7, 9, and sharp 11 of the original C7th chord. Okay, and then the last one is going to be a B flat major 7 sharp 5 chord. So this one here goes like this. So I've got this idea. And this is going to be the flat 7, the the 9, the sharp 11, and the 13. B flat, D, F sharp, A. So now we have this set of ascending arpeggios that we're going to use to create these lines. Okay, so what I want you to do is practice these, go through these in every key. Learn this as just a drill, an exercise, just so you can acclimate yourself to this idea and how this works. All these chords work together to create this continuing extensions of the C7 sound. Okay, so in step 2, what we're going to do is follow up each one of the ascending arpeggio lines with a descending C dominant bebop scale. So check this out. If I start with C7, notice what the rhythm of that is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. So it lands on beat 3, it lands on a downbeat. I've started on a chord tone and it ends on a chord tone. The second one is the E minor 7 flat 5. So from here, notice that when I play that descending scale, I'm playing the C back down. So if you think of that C dominant bebop scale in like a first inversion, that's what it's going to sound like. And this is the thing that you probably haven't seen so much of, if you've seen it at all, is starting these lines on these different parts of the chord that give us the inversion of the scale when we're descending. So we're going up with the arpeggios and we're descending back down with the bebop scale. This enables us to mix these ideas together. Some really cool effects. So the third one is going to be from the G minor major 7. I'm going to arpeggiate up the chord, come back down the scale. That's very cool because it gives us that F sharp in there, and then when we play back down the scale, we're using that F. And there's a nice little, tension and release kind of thing that's going on there when that happens. So then when we go up to the B flat major 7 sharp 5, so there you have 4 distinct ideas. Now these are still just the skeletons. We still have steps 3 and 4, so stay with me. In step 3, we're going to be playing a follow-up note, which will be a third up from the last note that we play. So it will be like this, from the C7. From the E minor 7 flat 5. From the G minor major 7 chord. And then from the B flat major 7 sharp 5. The fourth and final step is to add a pickup note before the downbeat of each chord. We can do this by ghosting an open string into the downbeat on the and of beat 4. Upright bass players do this all the time, but I first picked this up from hearing John Patitucci playing these open string pickup ideas on electric bass. So let me show you what I mean. So if I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4 into the minor 7 flat 5, into the minor major 7th, and then into the major 7 sharp 5. And if you listen to this example that's coming up, I add in another 2 notes. So from here, when I go up to the 3rd, I come back down a 4th and then go down a major 2nd. So that's a really kind of cool idea. So the whole idea from there. Okay, so check this out, check the example out in context, and notice how we've taken these ideas for learning, you know, the notes in the chord. We learn the different chord tones and the extensions. We learned how to put that into a series of chords. We learned the bebop scale. We learned where the bebop scale came from, which was the Mixolydian mode, and we just added that chromatic note between the root and the flat 7. And there's a lot of guys that will learn this type of stuff and they'll say, oh, okay, I'll learn the scale, and then all they do is practice the scale up and down, or all they do is practice the arpeggios up and down. They never put it together. This is what's called syntax. Syntax is when you're working on how you're organizing your phrases. Notice that you've got to be doing this kind of work, because if you don't, you can't just go from practicing the scales to playing these type of lines. It just isn't going to work. And notice how there's a structure to what's going on. In other words, this makes sense. It's, you know, you can't just play things initially that have no kind of meaning to them against what you're playing over. So check this out in context. If you're interested in becoming a better improvising bass player and learning great musical content from arpeggios to grooves, then be sure to subscribe to my channel now. If you like this video today, then be sure to support my channel by giving it a big thumbs up. And if you really like this video, then please check out my books, my membership website, and my Skype lessons. Until next time, practice smart, work hard, and play creatively.